When it comes to messaging women, whether on text, Tinder, or beyond, there are only 3 types of messages: the good, the bad, and the ugly. If a girl is single and even somewhat attractive, you can be sure that her smartphone is full of a lot of bad messages, a few good ones, and as for those ugly ones, let's just hope those got deleted. Don't let anyone tell you different. Messaging women is a high-stakes game. Done right, the chance to spend an evening with a new, beautiful stranger whenever you want is at your fingertips. Literally. Done wrong, you will systematically obliterate whatever chance you may have had as her responses dwindle down from one-word answers to half-hearted emojis to, ultimately, ghosted silence. And so what could be wiser than the
9 greatest text messages ever sent in hookup history?
Hello and welcome, I am Rob, but I am about to turn into your fairy godmother because your love and sex life is about to become a Cinderella story once I share with you the 9 greatest texts ever sent. But just like Cinderella had to be home by midnight, there is a catch here too. Since these 9 messages I'm going to share came directly from my phone, directly from my interactions I had with women that I met and I dated, these messages showcase my personality. And just like you probably wouldn't want to wear another man's shoes, you probably shouldn't just copy and paste another man's text. That is, except for the messages that I do recommend just copying and pasted, which I conveniently also included on this list. But look, the real magic behind these texts, they're not even necessarily the words per se, but rather it's the subtext. It's what the words imply. It's what's conveyed. So with that in mind, I chose these 9 texts because each represent a skill or a technique that every guy is going to need at some point. In fact, you'll probably find a use for all of these texts anytime a text conversation with a woman goes beyond a dozen or so back and forth messages. So pay attention, because the 9 messages that we're going to cover are going to teach you: 1, how to keep a vibe going with a woman; 2, how to prime a date; 3, how to recover from a bad mistake; 4, how to respond to objections with humor; 5, how to respond to a test with redirection; 6, how to respond to a test with humor; 7, how to ease a progression point; 8, how to seamlessly transition; 9, how to break the ice before a date. As you're going to see, the first few messages will start off very broad, where we'll touch on the theory of attractive communication, and then we'll move into techniques, and then we'll get even more specific with templates, until finally I'm just going to give you a couple foolproof messages that you can just swipe word for word. So without further ado, let's transform your thumbs into 2 of the best wingmen the game has ever seen.
Text number 1.
A day in the life of a player. Just saw a frail old dude riding a yellow scooter, wearing knee pads, also yellow, hollering at some big, beautiful woman outside of Arby's. Thought of you. A lot of guys wonder how to keep a vibe going with a woman over text. And sending women sporadic texts as you go about your day is a great way to keep yourself on her mind. However, this can seriously backfire if you're sending the wrong types of messages. Most guys don't realize that they're committing a serious mistake when texting, "Hey, how's your day going?" or "What are you up to?" Not only do such generic messages lack personality, women usually see messages like that as a needy cry for attention. At some point, we've all sent a message simply because we wanted a woman's attention, that we wanted a response. And if you've ever anxiously waited on a response from a hot woman, and really, who hasn't, then I'm talking to you. Now look, I'm not saying it's wrong or even that it's abnormal to anticipate a woman's response to your text. But it is a problem if all your message does is try to elicit a response from her, which most commonly comes in the form of asking stupid questions. So the cure to that problem is inviting her to step into your world for a minute. By portraying your world in an awesome way, she'll want to respond. And this is something that really any guy can do, because awesomeness is measured in the way you describe your world. Case in point, something as mundane as a scooter riding geezer getting his Mac on at the local Arby's can top the awesome charts if you make it sound interesting or funny. By channeling your inner wordsmith, you give her a glimpse into your inherent awesomeness.
Text number 2.
The manly mood setter. Just started raining. that means we should be under a cozy blanket, huddled up, sipping some wine, and watching Rambo 3 together. So let's say you want to get a woman thinking about or excited about seeing you again. How would you go about doing it in a way that will capture her attention and get her anticipating seeing you again? Most women say that they want a guy who's romantic and thoughtful, right? Yet most guys have learned the hard way that being overly romantic and thoughtful is a great way to get overlooked and friend-zoned. Frustrated? Confused? Well, the good news for all my soon-to-be formerly overlooked and friend-zoned brothers, I've solved this paradox the same way the U.S. Army solved the problem of rescuing American POWs from communist torture camps. And that answer is Rambo. Using a hyper-masculine icon and a grenade-launching soldier of fortune is about as hyper-masculine as you can get, to contrast a potpourri of activities and words favored by womankind, for example, cozy, cuddling, wine sipping, you're able to straddle the line between appealing to her womanly inclinations while maintaining your masculine dignity. While you don't have to suggest a romantic Rambo 3 date, even though Rambo 3 is the best Rambo, let's be honest here. But it is important that your testosterone-friendly contrast be so extreme that it's humorous.
Text number 3.
Doghouse sympathy. Lenny has been giving some serious thought to our relationship, and he's worried. And he just wants to remember a happier time for us. Lenny hopes you'll consider hearing what I have to say. A woman's perception of a guy can change fast. To quote the modern poet Drake, 0 to 100 real quick. And if you've ever been in the doghouse, you know trying to tell a woman anything only seems to make things worse. Pissing off a girl that you're dating is like drowning in a vat of quicksand. Trying to escape only sinks you deeper. As a guy who knows all too well about what it's like to be in that quicksand pit, I also know there's only one way out, which is that you need to change the way that she perceives you. Now, this is usually why texting an angry woman is such an uphill battle, right? To her, what you text is overshadowed by how she sees you. But what if your texts technically weren't coming from you? What if you had a third party speaking on your behalf? Moreover, what if that advocate was a speaker most women couldn't possibly hate? Well, do women hate kittens, or do they hate cute dogs? Unless you have a thing for sociopaths, I know that you can't think of a single woman that hates cute dogs and or kittens. Well then, how long do you think she can continue to hate you when Bruce, the adorable kitten dressed in formal evening wear, is trying to work things out between you guys? Spoiler alert, not long. So to do this one yourself, simply have a few cute animal pictures saved on your phone. I'd highly recommend using pictures of pets that you actually know or pets that you live with, rather than just looking pictures up on Google, since it could come up in conversation later. But whatever picture you use, what you absolutely need to do is make sure that it fits the picture that you're trying to paint.
Text number 4.
A most dignified response.
What's the plan? Where are you taking me?
I'll let you know tomorrow. Hey, so let's meet at Twisted Lizard tonight at 8.
I just looked that place up. You made me wait 2 days to invite me to some dinky bar and grill? Are you kidding?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Ritz-Carlton wasn't taking reservations at the moment.
That was good. Okay, see you at 8.
When a woman throws an objection at you, how do you respond? Well, to help answer that question, I pulled up an interaction I had with a feisty young lady that could have easily taken a wrong turn. We all know that women often test men, which means they do or say something negative or challenging to see how you're going to respond. And if you show weakness, you fail the test. If you get defensive, you fail the test. Even if you get emotional, you fail the test. So the best way to handle a woman's tests is by responding in a way that shows her it didn't affect you. You also don't want to give her any gas. And by that I mean you don't want to give her anything to latch onto or argue with you about. Even if what she said is totally illogical and is objectively wrong, or even makes no sense, you don't want to get into an argument because that gives her gas. It gives her something to latch onto and continue arguing. In this text exchange, I didn't care about defending my date spot or having a debate proving a point. My objective was simply, how can I get this girl out? So that's why I apply the agree and amplify technique, which probably sounds familiar if you've ever looked into improv comedy or acting. Basically, agreeing and amplifying means you don't try to fight or resist what the other person is saying. You just agree, and then you amplify it by taking whatever they said to an extreme. In this case, she tried to call me out for not picking a fancy date venue, so I thought of the most stereotypical, over-the-top fancy venue, and then I used that in my response. Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Ritz-Carlton wasn't taking reservations at the moment. Notice how I agreed with her, and then I made my point in a dry, matter-of-fact way. No emojis, no ha-ha-has. I intentionally even left out punctuation marks, like a period at the end of the sentence, as well as commas, because I wanted to make it clear that I wasn't trying too hard. I wasn't trying to make her laugh. I wanted my text to come off understated, to convey that I wasn't thrown off by her test. I wasn't reacting to it, and I wasn't backing down.
Text number 5.
Flirtatious Aikido.
Wow, you're such a loud nerd.
If by loud nerd you mean intellectually enchanting dreamboat, then I applaud your good taste in men. When a woman tests you, sometimes the best way to respond is by flexing some verbal wit and redirecting what she said. The idea behind this text is like the Japanese martial art Aikido. Not that I know much about Aikido, but I do know this. The purpose of the martial art is to redirect an attacker's momentum so that you throw them off balance and you're able to gain control of the fight. And this is exactly what I did when I was called a loud nerd by a lady who was clearly misinformed. I redirected her insult in a way that let me display some personality as well as humor. Even better, I reframed it in a way so that it made it look like she was the one chasing me. Anytime you see an opportunity to reframe something a woman said in a way that's both humorous and it makes you out to be the prize, you definitely want to take it. And one of the reasons I put this particular text on the list is because it's based on a simple template that you can use in a lot of different situations. So move over, Mr. Miyagi, because I'm about to wax a mantra on your ass that you can use whenever a woman gives you shit. If by X you mean Y, then yes dash approval. Where X is an insult or nasty remark, Y is a positive quality or flattering attribute, and yes or approval is a phrase that confirms that you're in agreement or you applaud her for something like her good taste in men. So if a woman called you rude, simply plug it into the formula. If by rude you mean the most exquisite gentleman, then I concur. Or if by rude you mean charming, then I'm glad we can agree on that.
Text number 6.
Reframing bad behavior. So we still on for this evening? Ah, you know I love it when a girl plays hard to get, and here you are doing it.
So sorry, I forgot to hit send LOL, but I'm glad you like it.
Another great way to handle a woman's test is with humor. And to help you do that, I'm digging up another texting template that you can pull out anytime a woman is acting up or even just acting a bit cold. However, you don't want to overuse this one because in a way you're sort of telling her that you like that kind of behavior. So I'd really only use a template like this with a girl once, and only if I'm sort of out of other options or ideas. As you can see from the exchange that I shared, the template goes something like this. You know I love like blank, and here you are acting like one. And the blank is where you fill in her bad behavior or describe what she's doing. And now you can add your own flourishes around the structure of this template. For instance, you could say, girls who blank really turn me on. How'd you know? Or, man, I can't get enough of women who blank. Sometimes if you're a bit over the top, it can actually kind of be a good thing because it comes off a bit sarcastic. For me personally, I found myself reaching for this template most often when a girl really isn't giving me a response or she's giving me a very lackluster response. That's when I usually hit her with a message like, you know I love shy girls named Amanda, and here you are, totally acting like one. At the very least, I found that this will at least elicit a response from her.
Text number 7.
The date teaser.
So, what do you do for work?
I run a digital publishing company, which is sort of a nerd's wet dream.
Now I'm intrigued. What does this nerd's wet dream involve?
That's a question better answered over a glass of wine and candlelight. What are you doing Tuesday at 7? Learning how to ease a progression point is such an underappreciated skill when it comes to dating and attraction. I mean, as great as those last messages may be, don't miss the forest for the trees here. Getting an in-person meetup, i.e. a date, is your ultimate goal when using your phone. Everything else is just a means to that end. And while personality and subtext are a great way to grease the wheels, you should always be looking for excuses to transition from texting each other to meeting each other. Since you always want to leave a woman wanting more, especially before a first date, use a conversational highlight as the bait. If she expresses curiosity or interest in something about you or even just your lifestyle, tell her that you'll explain, but you'll explain in real life or you'll explain in person. Not only are you asking her out in a way that's not awkward and it's kind of playful, but you're also going to stay on her mind because she's going to want to know more, which keeps her thinking about you. And since there's not much personality or quirkiness to this text, you can literally just take it and copy it and pretty much use it word for word, other than the fact that you might want to change some of the wording to fit whatever date that you have in mind. So if you were going to take her for a health smoothie, right, then it becomes a question best answered while sipping a green juice.
Text number 8.
Progression with humor. Shall we be old-fashioned and exchange numbers? 555, 555, 5555. In any interaction you have with a woman, there's always going to be progression points, which are moments the interaction moves closer to intimacy. Many progression points are obvious, like the first time you kiss her or the first time she agrees to go back to your place, but there are also progression points long before physical escalation. In fact, some of these progression points happen before you ever even actually see her in real life. For example, before you ever even meet up with a woman that you matched with on a dating app, you'll have already moved through several progression points. Matching with her is a progression point. The opening message and response are progression points. And transitioning from messaging on the app to exchanging phone numbers is yet another progression point. It's inching you closer and closer to intimacy. Over the years, I found the more you spike a woman's emotions at these progression points, the more smoothly things tend to go. Now, I don't want you to get carried away here. When I say spike her emotions, I simply mean doing or saying something that's witty or even just gets her chuckling a bit. Humor, creativity, and wit, those are some of the best ways to deliver that spike. That's why whenever I'm looking to transition an interaction on a dating app to exchanging phone numbers, I try to add a little bit of panache. Again, I'm not trying to be a stand-up comedian, or I'm really not even trying to make a joke. I'm simply conveying a little bit of personality to offset the natural tension that's baked into a progression point. And as a quick bonus, here's the exact text message that I usually send after she's given me her number on the dating app and I'm texting her for the first time.
Text number 9.
Date icebreaker. Table over by the bar. Look for guy in tuxedo with bushel of flowers chiseling an ice sculpture. All right, so here we are. Text number 9, which tackles a quality problem, which is how do you break the ice on a first date? Well, one way I like to do it is with a fun text that I'd sometimes send to women right before they arrive to a date. And just to clarify, I most often did this on our first date. The purpose of my text was simply to get my date laughing and get her loosened up a bit right before we meet each other. And again, we probably meet each other for the first time. And now look, I know this text might seem a little bit over the top and almost kind of cartoonish, but that's sort of the whole point, right? I want to make myself stand out and I want to spike her emotions a bit. Also, I want to show her that I'm not trying to play it safe or tone down my personality or my sense of humor. While I'm not saying anything offensive or vulgar, I'm also not staying neatly within the lines of what most guys consider to be good first date etiquette. Just as an aside, I try not to use screenshots in these examples because I feel like it's kind of tacky, but for learning purposes, I'm going to show the rest of this interaction so you can see how this night went. Now look, it obviously wasn't simply one text that put her in this state of glee, but I'll tell you this. When this girl showed up to the date, she was already laughing and she was already in a good mood. And when a girl shows up like that, it makes everything so much easier and so much more enjoyable, which you should find out for yourself by sending a message just like this one. In fact, just copy and paste it if you want. All right, well, there you have it. The 9 best texts in hookup history. And look, if you enjoyed this video and you want to take these concepts even further, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out this link, which explains a much more thorough and detailed course that Bobby Rio and I created called Unlock the Scrambler. In it, we delve into the nuts and bolts of the seduction process and how you can take a woman who's showing you a little bit of interest or even just a little bit of attention and transform that into infatuation and obsession. So if there's a woman that you're texting, this is going to be the step-by-step blueprint for how to take things from a guy that she's texting to the guy she's sleeping with and dating. Again, here's the link, and I'll also put it down here in the description. And finally, if you guys have any suggestions or any ideas for videos that you'd like to see me cover, please let me know in the comments section. As you may have seen in the other videos, I answer and respond to everyone who leaves a comment. And also, be sure to connect with me on social media, whether it's Instagram, TikTok, X, or Facebook. And if you haven't, like and subscribe so you'll be the first to know when new content comes out. All right, so that's all I got for today. Thanks so much for watching and happy texting. Hey, since I like people who watch the video all the way to the end, I'm going to give you one more of my favorite messages. And this one works great as an opening message for girls that you match with on Tinder or a dating app.